They're being held up by the other sessions. Is there another session? Yeah. All right, we're going to start.
Hello, welcome. Hi, welcome to Innovation in Advertising in the Media. I'm Kathy Sandler. I'm Senior Manager of Content Applications and Digital Workflow Development at Penguin Random House. And we're going to talk about the different aspects of innovation in advertising in the media. Just to frame the discussion, as you probably know, traditional media is seen as a dinosaur and not innovative. The number of media firms and advertising firms is shrinking, it's consolidating, there's a lot of bad news out there. In book publishing, there's threats from self-publishing. Advertising dollars are moving from media companies to brands. Advertising's not trusted in the era of fake news today. But we're going to hear from 3 agents of change who are going to change that narrative and challenge those notions. So you can see their bios in the app, and hopefully you downloaded that and looked at that. I'm not going to read their bios, but just a quick introduction of our speakers. Iman Oubou has a master's degree in biomedical engineering, was a cancer research scientist leading medical missions to developing countries. She was crowned Miss New York, US in 2015. And then she had a podcast on inspiring women, including Anne Choquette, who's in the audience, and many others. You can read about it on SWAAY.com with 2 A's. It's a digital magazine on female empowerment that she started, and she's going to talk about her experience with that, being a startup and disrupting traditional media. At the end, we have Meg Runeari, who is at Teads TV, and a lot of her co-workers are here. Thanks for coming and sponsoring this conference. She has a passion for sports and spent many years helping to monetize the pre-roll for professional sports highlights across a global publisher network. She also worked in ad operations for Sporting News, and now she's Vice President of Business Operations at Teads. You'll hear more about what that is. It's an ad tech video platform. When you look at a website, you'll see programmatic advertising about that subject. That's what her company does. And lastly, we have Chantal Restivo-Alessi. She worked in the music business for 10 years at EMI and saw a lot of change there, I'm sure. Then she worked in investment banking for a number of years, and now she's Chief Digital Officer of HarperCollins, one of the largest book publishers in the world. So we're going to have some opening statements. We're here for about 45 minutes to speak on innovation in the media and advertising, to understand what's going on and navigate what's next. We want to be able to understand the link between media and advertising and diversity, both internally at our companies and also the role of media and advertising on how we perceive diversity. So we're going to have 3 points of view on it. We're going to start with Iman, who's at a very small startup company, then Meg, medium-sized, and Chantal, a very large company. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. So I'm Iman Oubou, and I'm the founder and CEO of SWAAY Media, which is a digital publication and media platform for today's socially conscious and entrepreneurial-minded women. Essentially, we wanted to bridge the gap between business publishers and lifestyle publishers and really change the way women have been portrayed in the media and really show a different side of women's interests. Unlike other media companies, we don't do clickbait. It's something that makes me cringe in today's media, and so especially when it plays on women's insecurities. And we, from day one, have focused our mission to increase representation of women in the business world, as well as base our content on really strong quality content and true journalism. And in terms of where we see trends going in the future, I think, although I wouldn't consider it necessarily innovation, journalism is coming back. I think that in today's social and political climate, there's a lot of desire for quality content, and publishers are more and more focused on investing in quality content at scale. And even advertisers are also investing in getting associated with premium content from publishers that the audience trusts. The other, I think, trend is monetization strategies. So a lot of publishers are investing in new monetization revenue streams. One being, of course, branded content studios, which is, I think, disrupting also the traditional advertising model, where now publishers are leveraging their unique insights into audiences and selling points, and their unique selling point to provide content for advertisers that is based on storytelling and content marketing. I think the other big trend is data and algorithms are getting really sophisticated. So content is not enough anymore to convert. So you need to really, as a publisher, study your audience, understand what their behavior is, how that changes with the current political and social and cultural climate, and what really makes them tick. So data is very important to invest in and understanding the audience behavior. And this is counterintuitive to what I just said, but data is not everything too. I think most big decisions can't always be based on data. I think what we've done before from the very beginning, well, mostly because we didn't have a choice, we're very small and we don't have a lot of talent and resources to invest in data, but a lot of the big decisions when it came to content were based on gut and like really connecting on a personal level with our audiences and really understanding who our target demo is and what they're missing and how we can provide content that actually brings value to them. I think that the media and advertising industries are probably the most important now, even though they're getting a lot of backlash in terms of increasing diversity and inclusion because of the power of storytelling. And I think that there is a lot of progress now. I think the media has done a good job in trying really hard to depict a more realistic societal image. And so, especially with the new media startups, like for example, SWAAY or Blavity, we're basically bridging the gap of the legacy media brands that because they can't pivot that quickly. So there needs to be more and more new media brands that are more niche focused and vertical focused, but also are solving problems and are more mission driven.
Thank you. Meg?
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for being our fearless leader through this process, and thank you to WinForum for having us, Teads, obviously, and thank you to my coworkers who showed up in droves. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit more about the diversity factor as it relates to Teads and innovation in general. I think in advertising, innovation is a byproduct of the people. Bringing in creative people, retaining them, nurturing an environment where sharing ideas and thoughts is encouraged is, what's separating the middle tier media companies from those that are, going to the top of the tier. At Teads, our ultimate goal is delivering an engaging experience to the right user in the right context at the right time. And we can only do that by putting collaborative, entrepreneurial, and diverse minds in a room together, and that best represents our vast audience of users across the internet. While lack of diversity in the media has been a topic of conversation, well before I was born, I think we should consider ourselves fortunate for being able to sit in a room together and have this conversation openly in this day and age. Willingness to have this discussion, I think, is not as simple as we might think. It takes a lot of effort and thoughtfulness and care to kind of bring this conversation to the forefront. And I'm glad to be having it with you all here today. I'm personally fortunate to be at a company that has, more recently embraced this conversation and is building a working group that, will really dive deep into the various pillars surrounding diversity and inclusion in the workplace. In addition to this group, we have created an apprenticeship program based in our innovation hub, which is in Montpellier, France. I know there's a lot of French people here, so I wanted to shout that out. And this is allowing women who come from a STEM background to really, dive into the Teads culture, to the technology space in kind of the Silicon Valley of France in Montpellier, and work in an atmosphere that is predominantly dominated by men. This is only the beginning for Teads. Truly, we have a lot of work to do, but it is our goal to help push this conversation forward, not only at Teads, but in the industry. And inspire other women and men of all backgrounds to speak up on this topic, because at Teads, we truly believe that the difference between, standing on the sidelines versus leading the conversation is what's going to be able to bring us to the next level as a business. You know, and just to kind of sidebar, I think the most important thing I've learned in my career in the media industry, in a role that is typically held by men, is that if you're thinking something, you're probably not alone. I think the size of this audience is a testament to that. But when we speak up and have a productive conversation around the topic of diversity in our day-to-day, we're able to drive change in our products, in our general business, and most importantly, our people. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we get off today.
Chantal.
Hi everyone. So I'm Chantal Restivo-Alessi, and I have a multiplicity of roles. One is Chief Digital Officer, but the other one is I head up our new global publishing business. And speaking as one of the dinosaurs, I guess, on this panel, I should have worn green instead of pink. I basically just was thinking about the question of how do you figure out and navigate what's next. And I think it starts really from the top. You have to be open to change. You have to have a culture in your business that is risk-taking. And I think, actually, I don't agree with the definition of dinosaur. I think media, and especially publishing, takes risks every day in the books we publish. So if you're able to transfer that risk-taking to other parts of the business, that's really all it takes to make change happen. And in terms of really how do we make it happen at Harper, the most important thing is, as I said, first of all, the culture of change coming from the CEO, allowing failure, really, and celebrating failure as much as we celebrate success. You know, having an open discussion about what worked and didn't work, and learning from that failure, not just fail, but actually try to take lessons from the failure and move on from that. And then having the agenda of innovation at all levels of the company, so in the executive team, but also at the lower level. So encouraging innovation and allowing people to know that whatever projects they're going to work on, the executive team is going to review some of the projects and invest in some of the projects, so that it's not, you're not left on your own, you're actually able to scale from within the company. And really, innovation, I think, should not be just considered digital. The reason I love my current job, I always loved my job at Harvard anyway, but the reason I love my current job is it allows me to innovate, really publishing from within, beyond digital, taking it global and rethinking how publishing has worked, and getting rid of barriers of country and territorial rights, and really thinking in a global mindset when our consumers, I totally agree with Iman, you have to think about your audience first. You have to think about whether you do it with data, people, a combination, which I think is the best approach. You really have to consider how the world's changing, and with social media, whether we like it or not, with digital media, the world is more global, and frankly, so are our authors, and so are consumers. They don't want to wait. So having the ability to publish globally is really one thing that I'm promoting. And I was in Japan last week, and I got really excited about this book, so I'm going to shamelessly plug here. But this is a Japanese player who plays soccer. I know I'm European, I confess, but I love soccer. So he's a Japanese player who plays in the English Premier League. And so the Japanese team took the initiative to approach the soccer player and basically managed to publish a book in England, in English, at the same time as a book in Japan in Japanese. So I think this is an example of how you take innovation and it breaks boundaries and countries. You know, by having and I totally agree with you, having teams work together with MEG, you're able to create something unique and different. And the other beautiful thing that I saw in Japan, if you think of a country that is really difficult for women to work in, I think 90% of our company there is women. And the reason they're happy to work with us is actually the opportunities that we offer women to have, high-level positions in a company and a voice at the table. So it's really, really exciting to be able to promote, diversity across countries.
Thank you. So we're going to open it up for questions from the audience soon, but I just had a couple of questions I wanted to ask the panel. So get your questions ready and we'll pass the mic around in a little while. But first I wanted to ask more about digital transformation. Can you give us specific examples of when you've seen that, or also other innovations that not necessarily digital, to Chantal's point?
Yeah, of course. So I came to Teads almost 3 years ago, and I did so because at that time there was this little thing called viewability, and for those of you that are in the industry, probably know this word and hate it, but it's very real. It's essentially you only pay for ads that are in view, which seems common sense, but at the time it was a major challenge, and one that many companies were not willing to take on or take seriously. I think they hoped it was a fad, and it was not, and it continues to not be, and be a very prevalent piece of all of our day-to-day. I came to Teads because not only were they embracing the concept around viewability, but they were really driving that forward and making sure that that was a part of our business practice, and really pushing the envelope there, and essentially making others better because of what we were doing. We've done that across many fields at this point and areas of the business, from brand safety to fraud to ads.txt. There's many initiatives that Teads has really taken, a thought leadership position on, which is important to not only, me as an operations person that has to deal with this on the day-to-day, but, for the brand and for the industry, that we're driving innovation through cleanliness, through ensuring people are getting an experience that makes sense for them, that isn't intrusive, and that really is engaging for a user. I'm proud to be a part of Teads for this reason, and I think this is something that if we can all kind of get on board in the digital ecosystem, I think that we will see greater success down in the long term as it relates to branding experiences and user engagement.
Well, I'll bring it back to people, because I think the biggest innovation, at least from the 6 years that I've been at Harvard, is really seeing how the old and the new can coexist. So how you can actually integrate digital teams into the day-to-day business and not have a separate group, but actually have integrated functions. So for me, the difference, for example, between music and publishing is actually that publishing, as far as I can tell, has been extremely innovative, and that's why I really hate the definition of dinosaur. I think it has been able to adapt, at least book publishing. It is facing, obviously, challenges every day, but who doesn't? And it's been able to do that by bringing in new people from other industries while retaining the skills and the capabilities of the old people and having them work together. And I think that's no mean, achievement. I mean, that's a major achievement in my mind, bringing the new and the old together, because you should not throw out the old. There's a lot of value in what we do, and I think I totally agree with you. I think quality is coming back, and I think quality is really what we are here to bring. So I think the combination rather than the replacement is really what I like about book publishing.
I feel like I have less to say on this because I come from the biotech field, so my life was not really very digital. It's all lab and science experiments. So for me, launching SWAAY has been my digital transformation, and just really discovering every day how also I used to consume myself as a reader. Media has completely changed, and now really kind of using my opinion as a target demo for a lot of other media companies to basically fix some of the problems. And as a young woman, of the content that I used to consume, or the lack of the content I used to consume. So in terms of where we're going, I think for the consumers have been tired of apps now. So for us, it's been something that we've been evaluating, also because of a lot of the feedback that we get from VCs, where it seems a lot more people are investing in marketplace versus media, and it's not really getting a great feedback right now when you're pitching it to investors. So we've been debating whether the app business is actually something to explore for a media company, but it seems like from the research that's been done, a lot of consumers are moving away from apps, so there are a lot of now digital transformation happening in that industry too, with their progressive web-based apps now that are being evaluated by a lot of companies, including us. So that's kind of where I think our digital transformation is heading.
I'm glad you mentioned progressive web-based apps, because also there's a big transformation in the book industry with the IDPF. We think we may see books in browsers sometime soon, even though it's been talked about for years. So on the idea of traditional media firms, Chantal, where have you been able to pivot and drive the innovation forward?
Well, besides the product themselves, obviously we have ebooks, we have audiobooks now, we're doing great. I think the biggest pivot is really internal. So as I was saying before, adding new skills and new people to the business is one key change. So bringing in really extremely different skill sets like data scientists and having these combinations of very editorially driven conversations with data at the same time is quite interesting at times, and mediating the two. Should the metadata be editorially driven or data driven, or probably both is the answer. You still want to have a sensitive conversation around content, but also make sure that that content is visible and resonate with consumers. So you're really balancing the two. So I think the processes internally are really the biggest change that's affected publishing, whether you're talking metadata or pricing or anything like that, and bringing that capability to the business, I think is the biggest pivot for publishing.
Thank you. And Meg, can you talk about your data-driven and analytical approach and how that helps you understand your audience?
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of reach from there and talk about about a year ago, Teads acquired an interactive creative studio, which we now call Teads Studio. This allows us to build immersive ads, transforming kind of the traditional 30-second TV spot into a much more engaging and personalized experience for a user on their devices. We use contextual and user data to show the right ad to the right person at the right time, as I kind of mentioned earlier. But more interestingly, from my perspective, is we've developed a creative pre-testing solution that allows you to measure ad effectiveness prior to the launch of the campaign. To me, this is really interesting when you couple it with the concept of diversity. In celebration of our new Duke and Duchess of Sussex, I will use a shining and now famous example from a young Meghan Markle forcing Ivory Soap to change their language from women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans to people all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans. Creative pre-testing allows Teads to play an integral part in that ensuring an advertisement is hitting the right notes in the diversity area as well as other areas that I'm sure we can all imagine. It's just ensuring that that advertiser is speaking to their audience in the right way, across the board.
Thank you. And Iman, what does innovation mean for you being a startup in a disruptive media company like SWAAY?
Well, I mentioned earlier the progressive web-based app is something that we're exploring heavily, but I think something that we just recently got into and launched is our content studio, which is kind of what most publishers now are doing. But we've been heavily investing in data and analytics and really understanding the target demo of the millennial female entrepreneur and socially conscious woman, especially in today's climate. And so we're now trying to bring that knowledge and insights into a lot of our brand partners and advertisers that are looking to re-engage that demographic in a way that is not controversial or in a way that actually resonates with the target demo. And I think in terms of the other types of innovation that we're exploring is a video platform, but more focused on long-form content. So in no short-form content that does well on social media is a crowded market right now, but we're looking into more docuseries and short films that actually tell a story that a lot of brand partners of ours are looking to be part of as well.
Thank you. So one quick question that we didn't plan for, but that came up this morning. Lawrence Lynn this morning said that innovation is not just invention, but it's also pragmatic. So if you have some examples of where there's some innovation that's not necessarily new, because many ideas have been thought of before, but how it was implemented, how it was different. Who'd like to start?
Well, for example, a German team actually on their e-commerce side thought of the advent calendar and bringing a news story, every day you would open a little window and you had a new romance story coming up. Now the advent calendar is pretty old, but the idea of like reinventing it online and bringing in these stories was something quite cute that they invented for Christmas, and then it was copied actually by having these, we have these sessions where we basically share best practices on a regular basis across markets. The idea got picked up by several other European markets, and they all started doing the advent calendar at the same time, which was pretty fun.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go back to my earlier statement regarding, taking, traditional video spot from a television commercial and making it new, making it whole again, and making it, engaging and to drive actual conversions for an advertiser is very important. So I think that's something that we're really focused on right now at Teads.
So just to switch the conversation a little bit, we've talked a lot about innovation in media and advertising, and now I'd like to make sure we talk about diversity specifically. I think a lot of you touched on it earlier, but have any of you seen an ROI, meaning return on inclusion, for some of the diversity efforts at your companies?
We're still very small, so we haven't really implemented any specific initiatives, but I mean, from a hiring perspective, I've always been very keen on making sure that the new team members have a diverse set of skills as well as diverse background. I think it complements, especially for a creative company, it's always good to have different perspectives. And then also a diverse team that also understands a bit of how our demographic things, as it is very important to have that in mind when we create content and create content for our advertisers and brand partners.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I think I think we're in a journey, the way if you say it honestly, you're in a journey, you're in the middle of the journey. The way I think it starts with recruitment, but then to your point of pragmatism, it also, in diversity, in my mind, it also starts with setting up the working environment in a way that actually allows people to progress in their career, whatever happens in their daily lives. So with simple things like, for example, being more flexible about how we work, personally in my team, having lots of women that I work with, it's totally fine to be able to work a set number of days from home, for example. So, and that's just one example, because if you look at how many days you're actually spending on conference calls and how many hours and you're not actually physically there, it should be more simple to allow that. So for me, it starts with little steps and bigger steps, making sure that, for example, in internships, you're hiring a diverse set of people, you allow people to experience publishing, which we do as a company, and encourage, and 60% now of our internship recruits are from diverse backgrounds. So it's a combination of bigger initiatives that are corporate-wide, but also smaller things that are having to do with the manager's mindset. Those two things will facilitate a better environment in the future.
Yeah, I think for us, the steps part is definitely kind of where we are, and I think we're pretty much at step one right now, which is talking about it, just having a conversation. I think when we started to do that, I personally had a sigh of relief, and I know from some of my coworkers, it was like, okay, now we don't have to go in the back room to have this discussion. We can all have it together and outright, and we can, move the business forward. I am confident that there's more coming in terms of true ROI, and we're putting the resources in place to do so. But right now, it's kind of like, okay, now we can do this, and let's see what we can come up with.
And just plugging another book, since I'm a book publisher, there's an excellent book that actually our CEO made us read, which is by Joanna Lippman. That's What She Said. And I think the reason I liked it very much was actually that it was balanced. I think what we need to make sure is that we're inclusive, because we are complaining about it not being inclusive on the male side. I think it should be inclusive on both sides. I think the the true value, and she had a lot of stats of proving, how values are being created is by true diversity, by allowing every voice to be heard. And one other thing that resonated for me with that book, and that I actually do all the time with my teams, is have women speak up. And when they don't speak loud enough, I ask them to repeat and speak louder. Because again, I've experienced, first person, how you actually have to speak a little bit louder, be a little bit flashier to make your ideas heard. So really, I think for every one of us, it's our duty to ensure that the voices are heard, wherever they're coming from. A good idea is a good idea. End of it.
I do think that's a really great book, so I recommend it. Kathy actually provided it to me as a gift. Thank you.
And Anne actually moderated a panel with that speaker, Joanne Littman, if you didn't get her name. Very good. So a final question that I'll ask, then I'm going to open up to the floor. So Iman, you are a startup searching for funding. I wanted to ask you two questions, actually. One is, how is your search going, and how have you been, how has it affected you as a woman trying to find funding from VCs? And secondly, you said that you're hiring, and people in the audience may be interested. So can you talk about the areas that you're hiring for?
Okay, so the funding question. Well, I think there are a lot of stats out there that speak for themselves, so the numbers don't lie. Obviously, 2% of VC money went to women founders last year, and it's very tough to, especially also being a media startup. So I think there are so many barriers I personally have to overcome. Obviously, one, being a woman, two, being a minority, and three, I'm in media. And right now, no one wants to invest in it, basically, is the biggest feedback. But I think, to me, I don't really like to play the victim, but I think that it's also a blessing in disguise because it has really pushed us to focus a lot more on revenue and being sustainable from an early stage versus a lot of the current media startups that we read about that overraise, overvalue, and have a hard time exiting or going public. So I think it really has pushed me to think about our strategy moving forward and prioritizing what actually is going to bring revenue and sustain us as a company, and then go back for funding, because right now you have to demonstrate a lot of traction, a lot of revenue for people to invest, and also not coming from the media industry has also played a bit against me. Also being an outsider, a lot of people want to invest in founders that have successful exits in the media industry as well. So bottom line, it's going. It's not where I wanted to be right now, but I think, like I said, I see the positive side of it, which is it drove me to think more about revenue from a very early stage versus relying on working capital to keep growing and growing and then not thinking about revenue, which was the case last year. And somehow I kind of regret that now, knowing where I was. The other thing I think, and there's a study behind this, is the way women founders are evaluated by VCs is completely different than men. Women are asked more prevention questions, men are asked promotional questions, and we were talking about this earlier. For example, there's a study called We Ask Men to Win and Women Not to Lose. And by that we mean when women are questioned during a pitch, they're asked how to minimize losses, how they can prevent certain challenges, how they're not going to fail, versus when you're questioning men's ventures, they're asked, well, what is the potential of your company? How are you going to grow? All the positives versus the negatives. And of course, VCs want to invest in something that has a great potential and gets them excited. So when you're asking women the wrong questions, you're automatically kind of, that works against them. So I think there needs to be a lot of work done in the VC space on how we perceive female founders and how we evaluate their businesses. I think launching female-focused funds is not the only solution. It's not the solution either. I don't think it's fair for us to go and pitch only women, which I've been told so many more times because my business is scary for men. I'm not sure where that came from, but I think expecting us to pitch only women just cuts all our chances in funding in half, and that's not necessarily the solution we're looking for. So I think there's a lot more room to have these conversations in this space. I am journaling all of it so that one day I can write a book about this. But it's definitely been an experience that I learned a lot, and I compared and contrasted with some of my male friends that are also raising money, and it seems that there's a lot of barriers we still have to overcome.
Thank you. And the jobs? Did you have any openings that you
Well,
contacted?
obviously we're growing the revenue side, so advertising and ad sales is definitely something we're looking for at the moment, as well as integrated marketing. So everything that has to do with content creation for our brand partners. We're launched the studio, so we're hiring for talent to lead that.
Okay. Anybody else talk about opportunities for the audience, potential? Or should we just open it up?
Sure.
You're hiring?
We're always hiring.
Another growing company.
Yeah, just to quickly kind of, finish the loop on Kathy's last question. I just think that, all of us and all of you, regardless of the field you're in, has encountered a challenge at some point in the workplace due to your sex. And personally, I, through this experience, through my experience at Teads, and again in this room, embracing that you're not alone, I think is really important. And I've, this has been a great experience getting to know you all, and then, I think we can all learn from that. So just want to touch on that.
Thank you. So questions from the audience. We'll bring the mic around. Yes, back there. Keep your hand up.
This question is for Iman. I'm actually also a startup founder, and I'm an advisor for another startup, which is also a female founder. And one of the things that we have started doing is working in crowdfunding. What's your opinion on that, in the crowdfunding sphere? Because I know that one of the things that the founder had brought up was the fact that only 2% of these monies have gone into a woman founded, and she felt that the best way that she could generate income was through the crowdfunding. And so we currently have one going on.
Yeah, I think actually women are the most successful when it comes to crowdfunding. I think it's a great idea. I just actually told my friend who launched a luxury hair extension brand to just go for a Kickstarter because it makes sense. For us, it's been challenging because we're media. It's harder to invest in content as a consumer than actually a product you're excited about. But if I had a consumer product company, I would have definitely made that my number one option. I think that's definitely something to be explored, especially if you have something that the audience or your consumer wants.
Thank you. Next question. I see.
As you think about being successful and innovative in media today, what kind of skills and characteristics do you look for in hires?
Hi, I think the main one that I look for is really adaptability or flexibility. So, and then I actually test the specific ability to work with different people. So I make them meet a lot of different people because I think that's the other important thing right now. So the comfort with numbers, the comfort with ability of working in teams. So those are the two most important things for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think being also number driven and understanding data is very important, and being able to adapt and pivot, especially for us in the startup. In the startup company, everybody's doing everything, so being able to understand the business side of the operations is also important in order to drive your decisions in the content creation, whether you're creative or operations person. Everybody's kind of chipping in and making sure that we're making all the right decisions based on the data we have and the numbers.
I just want to add, my company just did some training on how your perceptions are, whether you prefer numbers or data or people, and there was this whole matrix of different quadrants of your brain, using your whole brain, and how to deal and communicate with different people who some people like bullet points, some people like numbers, some people like stories, and how to appeal to all of them. And I think that's all important. Next question.
Hi, I just had a question about the media that's changing itself and is way less traditional than before. People will not as much reading newspapers and magazines, they're also listening to podcasts and writing blogs, and how important are those new things to you, and are you hiring people who are expressing themselves through those types of content?
Are you asking how important are like
Podcasts, blogs?
Very important.
Yeah.
I think it's a media company has to have multiple channels and assets. So obviously for us, I started off doing a podcast. That's how it all came about for me. And we're launching an entire new kind of channel podcast through different verticals. And then the next thing is video. So you have to have kind of your foot in all of these channels and adopt like many assets under the company. So yes, they're very important, and I think you have to keep in mind on like, is it short form, is it long form, what does the market want right now, and what are people listening to, because like you said, there's a lot of content out there, so how do you choose and how do you really stand out? So also being focused and niche is always a good thing, that way you really kind of go for one type of audience versus trying to capture the entire market, which is crazy, especially for us as a startup. But as a media company, I think having audio, editorial, and video is very important.
So I think in our case, I'll give you a twofold answer. So it's important for certain authors, not for all, but the most important thing for us is to support the authors and make sure that, horses for courses, people pick the right tools and the right social environment depending on what they're trying to say and who they're trying to reach. So trying to do it all is impossible for an author, and I'm talking from an author's perspective. So our job is really to guide the choices and make sure that they get the maximum reach with the minimum effort, if you like. And our other job is to build platforms that can be helpful to those authors who are really not of the stature that they can have their own podcast or their own website or their own whatever it is tomorrow that will be required. So I think it's a combination of being a media company for those mid-list authors that we can aggregate in niches or subgenres, as well as being an advisor, almost like an ad agency, to those authors that have their own profiles of a certain stature.
Next question.
Hi, my question is to Iman. You earlier mentioned that one of the challenges that you are incurring in terms of funding or getting the funding to grow your company is your ethnicity. Was there a moment that you felt, what made you feel this way? Statistics, or is there a specific case that you can share that made you feel that because of your background, you are not having the same opportunities that you will otherwise?
Yes, there are statistics, but I've had personal experiences as well. And this is actually recently, it's not necessarily, it's actually, I don't want to bring religion to this, but I did have a question about that. I'm Moroccan, so I'm a Muslim, and one of the investors recently during a pitch said, so I've invested in a lot of Jewish companies, Jewish founders or whatnot, is that a problem? And then it was kind of out of nowhere because we've never talked about that at all in the pitch. I never even mentioned my religion. And I just felt like that was a question that someone else might not have been asked. Of course, they end up passing, but you can't help but wonder, it's not something that I'm obviously like dwelling on. But yes, I do get questions of that sort, like sometimes like, oh, you're from Morocco, how do you speak English so well? Or you just been here for 10 years, just kind of things like that make you wonder. They're not obviously telling you that they passed because of it. I don't think that it's maybe even the reason, but just compared to my other, fellow founders, I think that it's interesting to get those kind of comments. Same thing also being a woman. Obviously sexual harassment is huge now and we all know about it, so I don't need to get into it. But yeah, I have my own share of certain moments like that.
One last question.
Hi, so my question is regarding, so you mentioned earlier about how sometimes funding, it can be challenging for women. I was wondering how does that play in convincing your brand partners or your clients to work with you? Is there any, would you see it as an advantage? I know that innovation part and what you bring as a value to the company obviously is what plays, but would you say that being a woman would either play against or being hired as an agency?
No, I think actually it works in my advantage with the advertisers and brand partners, because right now a lot of brand partners are looking for women to lead the way in terms of campaigns and content that they want to create for women, especially my demographic, millennial female entrepreneurs. So I think they actually, that works in my advantage. I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not I get funding. That's something that I'm never really asked by advertisers or brand partners, whether or not we were able to get more funding or why not. That's not a question that we bring up in client meetings. So I think it's all about just what we bring to the table. Also, I think the positive side of it is that we don't have a lot of investors, so we have a lot of room to pivot however we see fit, and we don't have other investors controlling kind of the vision as well. So I think that's also something a lot of clients appreciate, is that we're somewhat independent. We do have investors, we just don't have a lot of VCs backing us. So it's a lot of angels and smaller kind of early stage VCs.
Thank you. I wanted to give the panel an opportunity to give some closing statements if you had something to share.
Yeah, I would say just, practice what you preach. Look at your team, and if there's not diversity within your own team, the team that you can control, then you're doing something wrong and you're doing the business a disservice. I think that all of us in this room have some control over that, and it's really important that we push for that in our businesses and set a good example for those around us.
Thanks.
I agree, and I think for the senior people in the room, the most important thing is really empowering talented people. For the junior people in the room, I think the one word I like the most is resilience. You will find difficulties, you will find situations where you just still have to push through. It's not going to be rosy, but you're just going to be sticking with it, and you'll make it, like we have.
I agree with that. But I think really to continue providing more value to women through content and storytelling for us, and for me at least, that was the reason why I created SWAAY, because I really didn't relate to a lot of the stories I saw out there in the business publications. And my only interest as a woman is not just fashion and beauty. I wanted to really, understand and hear about other women going through interesting paths and non-traditional career paths. So I think continuing to empower media companies that continue to tell those stories and change the narrative for women is really important in this conversation.
So I think this was a great discussion. I hope you agree. I want to thank our panelists, and please continue the discussion.